Hey guys, Kyle, the Death Knight of Anime here, bringing you my review for Eden Zero Chapter 98. And alright, so I'm a little late in talking about this, but I figured it's about time. It's about time, and it's definitely appropriate with this chapter, which already kind of declares it as fact, which is that Eden Zero is basically getting an anime adaptation. And to be honest, my feelings on this are a lot more mixed than you might think, because while I am excited it's getting an anime, I am concerned in the sense of what studio is going to pick it up. Because if you all remember, by the back half of the series run, Fairy Tail was basically dropped by its original studio and fell into the lap of A1 Pictures, who will, to put it nicely, definitely gave us a much lower quality product. So right for me right now, when it comes to my thoughts on Eden Zero getting an anime, Mashima and the magazine that it's running in really need to be extra careful with who they choose to adapt this story. And the thing is, while no studio is perfect, the effort still has to show. And if it does end up, and the thing for me is, if the studio who ends up adapting this is A1 Pictures again, they have to put their best damn foot forward this time around. Like, no fucking around. They need to have their best people working on this thing. That's like, even if it is, even if the product still isn't like great, if they could just have like their best product, their best people, their best product in Zero, then I'll be happy with that. But yeah, if it really needs a dedicated studio to it really needs a studio that's pretty much dedicated in order to making this the pretty much best, in order to making the Eden Zero anime the best, the pretty much best that pretty much I know it can be. Because a lot of this is a lot of what we've seen in Eden Zero would look great animated, but it just needs a good studio in order to really like bring a lot of that forward. So yeah. Um, Now, and I think the big thing for me is, and I think the big thing for me in general as to why I'm at least excited in order to get an anime adaptation, is because is because for as is pretty much because pretty much despite the amount of people talking about it, Eden Zero has kind of been one of those anime where even though Eden Zero has been one of those series where, despite the fact that I've seen a lot of people talk about it, review it, and all that, it still feels very much like one of those that's fallen under the radar, well, pretty much compared to its basically predecessors and even most other shonen series. So, as an anime adaptation, a good one, I feel it could potentially bring in and attract a lot more people to the series and boost its popularity. So yeah, as a whole, I'm excited. I'm definitely excited in terms of getting an anime, but it does need a good studio behind it, or at least one who's basically dedicated to making the best product out of this they can. And and yes, for anyone I will, and for anyone asking, yes, I probably will. I will more than likely, I will more than likely end up like reviewing the anime as well when it comes out. So, but yeah, that's just kind of my thoughts on the anime, on the announcement of the anime. But yeah, but yeah. Um, so, but yeah, finally getting into the chapter itself. One of the big things this week is that the battle with Drakken Joe is more or less finished on both fronts, which, yeah, is something I kind of expected to happen. Because if you really look at this, if you really look at the setup from last week of like Dragon Joe's like transform state versus like Blobish transform state versus Shiki, who's now awakened as Overdrive. Uh, there was It's one of those things where, for as powerful as Draken Joe was, there was no way in his current form that he could have stood a chance against Shiki's power, I think is the which I think in some ways is the only thing I'm disappointed about with this chapter is that for pretty much as epic as Shiki's display of power is, we never really get to see what the full extent of Shiki's overdrive is because of what happened to Joe and how he's already kind of weakened, but by pretty much by having himself transformed into this amorphous blob form. So, but I'm sure, but even if Shiki were to, but I'm sure it's a situation where even if Shiki were to pretty much face or pretty much face like Drakken Joe on equal terms, I'm sure even under those circumstances we would have only like scratched the surface of the power he has. Like with this, I think it is definitely certain that we've only scratched the surface for sure. Um, and what I'm curious about now, though, is that with Drakken Joe defeated and his ambitions pretty much crushed, what exactly does Mashima have planned for Chapter 100? Because that's his first milestone, and with everything wrapping up with Joe, it just begs the question even more of what he's scheming for that first milestone. Like it's just it does leave me a little curious right now. Um, I mean, the only thing that makes sense to me right now, and this is something I've mentioned many times over, but is that chapter 100 could possibly be the chapter where Weiss loses his arm, I guess. Again, proving that no matter how much you change, that there are some things you can't change. That's the first thing that kind of pops into my mind, but I don't know. I don't know. Like with Mashima, you just never know what he's gonna do, and yeah, with his first milestone in the series, it's even more like up in the air of what he's gonna do. I just don't know. Um, Getting back on track though, the other part of this was, like I said, the other part of it, like I said, the two things that happened is that they defeated Drakken Joe and they crushed his ambitions, and they basically crushed his ambitions with basically Witch destroying the satellite cannon. And at this point, some might see it as a convenience that ether power is basically the go-to solution for a lot of problems in this world, but that's kind, but. But again, in this world, it's kind of dependent on that. This whole world is kind of dependent on ether power, so I'd say it works. And it's still even even if they did destroy the cannon, you have to look at kind of the blowback here because after the cannon was destroyed, like both Witch, Ivory, and Hermit, they were pretty much like they pretty much looked like they were almost maxed out, if not already maxed out. So it kind of shows us. So there was just a little bit enough of that to show us that, yeah, if Witch had failed in order to destroy the cannon, that would have been pretty much the pretty much only chance that they would have had to do it. So yeah, Mashima is good at. That's one thing I gotta give Mashima is that even if he even if he's even if he does make things seem easy for our characters, there he always makes sure in order to show the after effects of the actions they take, and in this case, yeah, they were pretty much they were nearly basically beaten by this. So yeah, um, uh, now one thing obviously to talk about in this chapter is we get insight into Drakken Joe's backstory, and I do kind of like how it's basically a reverse. It's kind of a reverse of Zeref. It's kind of a reverse Zeref situation. Like Zeref Zeref basically saw his immortality as nothing more than a curse, and went to basically every extreme possible in order to rid himself of his immortality. Whereas with Joe, he was basically an experiment. He was basically an experimental child who was destined to die. So in his desperation, he sought out a means to extend his life and stave off his fear of death, which led him to what we know of Drakken Joe today. And I'm not gonna lie, I do find this backstory slightly more compelling than Zeref's, simply because Well, I like to think that humanity has grown enough to, well, to pretty much know that basically immortality isn't worth it. There are still so many who wish that they could stave off dying for as long as possible. I think a lot of people on this earth still pretty much think that. If you really think about it, for as twisted as his methods were, Drakken Joe in a weird way does represent humanity's greatest wish that I think sometimes we're just too afraid to say out loud, and what that desire can kind of push us to if we try and if we try and pursue it. Like I think we all agree that even if we don't want immortality, we definitely always want to find that one thing that can help us stave off dying. So, and sometimes that's Dragon Life of Drakken Joe is what it can push us to, I think. Also, we one kind of funny thing is we get something I never thought we'd get, but neither am I surprised or complaining, which are bikini magazine pinups of Eden Zero's heroines, and I can't lie, that is a clever use of fan service, and you're not gonna see me complaining. I just question if you needed 6 pages dedicated to that. Although I will also admit, seeing Valkyrie again with the other star, that pinup of Valkyrie and the other star shines in their bathing suits, like just seeing Valkyrie again, oh boy, it brought up some old feelings to be sure. So yeah, but yeah, guys, that's all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Mr. Crunchyroll. Death Knight of Enemy, signing off. Later, guys.